July meeting of the Richland County Finance and Personnel Committee meeting to order. Was there proof of notification?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the meeting was properly noticed.
Thank you. We have a 15-point agenda. I would appreciate a motion to approve that agenda. Mr. Manning, second by Mr. Turk. And before we take a vote on that, John has reminded me that we are going to make a couple of moves here on that agenda, not deleting anything, but after the report on investment income year to date, we're going to move number 13 up because the Beckers, the people, the professional services will be online at that, or on the phone at that time. So we'll take that before anything else. So we do have a motion to approve the agenda and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Previous minutes. Unless I hear any comments to correct those, I will declare them approved as published. And takes us to number 6, 2023 investment income year to date. And Jeffrey Even, Richland County Treasurer, is here to report.
Alrighty, the report should be in your committee folders. It is slightly out of date due to the fact that I had to have it in last week before the 30th. One of our, no, it should be investment income, that guy. Alrighty, so just to provide an update, I know you guys don't always get a lot of glamorous, exciting news in these meetings for finance and personnel. As of late, so I thought I'd provide a little bit of a bright spot. As of May 31st, because I haven't gotten all the statements yet for June, we have investment income of $228,691.47. Just to put that in perspective for you, we budgeted for $75,000 total for the year. So we're tripling that at the moment. I can tell you right now, one of our investment accounts for June, we got another $26,000. I'm expecting the other statement to come at the end of this week or early next week. So
Jeff, when did we make the change over to this new system of investment?
it was approved last summer in 2022, and by the time we got everything approved, with WISC and all the regulatory things that we have to do to open up new accounts, it was November when we officially moved funds to do this. So
that's amazing. Thanks to your momentum and your idea. So
well, I can't take a lot of credit. When we first talked
well,
about this, when we first talked about this, interest rates were around 2.5%, 2.3%. Now we're over 5%. So I mean, that's the big driver there, is that we're just in a favorable market for investing and we're taking advantage of it. So that's all I have for you. Now I just wanted a little sunshiny news for the committee.
That's great. That's great. Okay. It was pointed out to me that I did skip over public comment, so I will open it up for public comment. Anyone? And I consider everyone in this room to be a member of the public. So if you want to say anything, now's the time to say it. Okay. We will then have a discussion and possible action on professional services proposal with Becker, professional services for economic development strategy and grant writing, Mr. Hokemer.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have my screen shared. Is that behind me?
Not yet, it's not sharing.
Okay, a thought that I had, and it's regarding economic development, and some of you that have heard me talk about this in the past. Economic development, and so many times when we take a look at county budgets, we look at expenditures. We don't take a look at the whole picture. We don't take a look at the revenue side whatsoever. I just remind you that in April of this year, the city of Richland Center ended the agreement that we had, a joint agreement between the city and the county. And I think that the county would be making a major mistake if they didn't consider at least some economic development efforts, because it's very important for us that we look at increasing the tax base. And that is not just in the city of Richland Center, but it's county-wide that we should be taking a look at that. There's also some remaining funds that could be used in 2023 from the Richland County Housing Authority that was defunct, and then there were dollars that were left unspent that the county had received approval to spend those funds on economic development. So there are some funds available. I had a conversation with Gary Becker, someone that I've known for a long time, and he's no stranger to Richland Center and Richland County. He was here actually when the bypass went around, and he worked on that project. He's done other work in the area. And I said to Gary, I think what the county really needs is, the first step is to take a look at what is the appetite? What is the appetite for people in Richland County to take a look at economic development efforts? What would that take a look like? What would those steps be? Who should they be meeting with? And all those types of things. So I had a conversation with Gary and his daughter Katrina. They're both on the call tonight. And Gary put together this proposal, and you can see on the end that it's $4,500 for the proposed scope of services. There could be some additional expenses if there's more in-person meetings or if they're not all conducted in one day. But I think with that, I will turn it over to Gary and Katrina. They can tell us what they have to offer. I also told them that the county was somewhat interested in grant writing capabilities, and that is something that Katrina has worked on. So Gary and Katrina, I'm going to turn it over to you right now if you want to explain your proposal.
Sure. Thank you, John, for that introduction. So we put a proposal together in response to your the way you presented the situation with economic development in Richland County. And our thoughts are that we would have a number of meetings we've identified 10 meetings. If we could do that in one day, that would be great. In Richland Center or someplace in Richland County, we can do it on site, or these could be virtual meetings. And they could involve multiple people in a single meeting as well. But the idea is that we should talk to a number of people who have interest in economic development in the county to get some perspectives. I'd like to talk to some representatives, county board members from some of the villages in the county, find out what their perspectives are on this. I imagine they're going to have some interest in continuing an economic development program. Also, some of the supervisors from some of the towns, I'd like to get their perspectives on economic development as well. There may be some differences across the county, but I'd like to find out what those perspectives are, and then also talk to a little bit more of a regional perspective. I know Vernon County is doing some things. I'd like to talk to Southwest Regional Planning and understand, maybe what some of the adjacent counties are doing, and seeing if there's opportunities for perhaps engaging in a collaborative economic development program with some adjacent counties. So that's essentially the proposal. We would conduct these meetings, write up our perspectives and the information from the meeting in a memo, and then present that to the county board and facilitate a discussion about what the next steps might be.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Becker, this is Chairman Brewer speaking. Anything else to add to that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering if Gary and Katrina would give a little bit more background on what their experience and expertise is, because they make a great team, and I think it's important for those on the line and those here to hear what Gary and Katrina have done in the past.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I've worked in Wisconsin my entire career. I graduated in 1985 with a master's degree in urban and regional planning. I have an undergraduate degree in economics and in geography. My first job after I got out of college was with the Southwest Wisconsin Community Action Program. And while I was there, I started up a program to provide business planning, advising and business planning preparation services to residents of Southwest Wisconsin who have an interest in starting their business. After being at Southwest Cap for a couple of years, I joined Veerbicker Associates in Reedsburg and worked with them, starting and heading up their planning and economic development program. And I worked at Veerbicker for just about 30 years. And in that role, I was involved in a lot of projects all over Southwest Wisconsin, all over the state of Wisconsin, that promoted community-based and county-level economic development programs. In the course of that work, I had an opportunity to work with a number of the institutions in Southwest Wisconsin, including Southwest Regional Planning Commission and many of the counties and county boards in Southwest Wisconsin. In 2016, I retired from Veerbicker and started my own consulting practice. I wanted to take the pressure off of having to generate work for other people. And since 2016, I've been working closely with the Madison region and staying a little bit closer to home, but I'm currently involved in assisting the 8-county Madison region, which also includes some of the Southwest Wisconsin counties of Greene and Iowa counties, but we're assisting them in the preparation of a comprehensive economic development strategy and getting them set up as a formal economic development district with the U.S. Economic Development Administration. Katrina, do you want to give a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so can everyone hear me okay? Here we go. Yeah, so I joined my dad, Gary, about a little over a year ago now. I was living in went to school and was living and working in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Studied entrepreneurship and nonprofit management in undergrad, and then have a master's in development practice, which is international development with a focus on economic development in grad school. And yeah, about a year ago, I was talking to my dad about wanting to switch to, I had been running a program for entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities for about 4 years, and previously had been working in a nonprofit doing fundraising, grant writing, communications. And so anyway, about a year ago, decided to join my dad, and we started Becker Professional Services. And since then, we've submitted a couple different federal and state grants for an innovation center in Stoughton. I'm also serving as the executive director of that to help it get started. And so through that, we've worked on quite a few different grants to the Federal Economic Development Administration and WEDC with the state. And so have some good experience with that.
Katrina, this is Chairman Brewer. Could you just make a comment in general on grants, availability, ignorance on our part? And I know, is Melissa Luck with us tonight? Melissa probably has the most experience of any board member in applying for and writing grants. Melissa, do you have a comment or a question?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Who just responded? Was that Melissa?
It's Melissa, yeah.
Yeah, can you comment on grant writing in general and how we're probably behind the door when they pass out grants in our county?
Yeah, so I mean, the problem with grant writing is it's incredibly time consuming and not having someone who is, whose job it is to do that does put us at a disadvantage for sure. I know that there have been several opportunities that we've gotten, but that's when, some of our regular employees have put all of their other work aside essentially just to work on the grants. So, which is not ideal either. So it's certainly an area where we could use some assistance.
Now, I think the proposal before us tonight is simply the step one, doing the analysis, having the meetings, bringing us, just getting a reset in the county. I call it a reset on economic development. I mean, we had red, it was wheeling along quite well. But due to a number of things, there have been changes, and I certainly don't want to see economic development fall by the wayside as a priority item for the county. It continues to be. I think this is a very reasonable step for us to take. I have received some proposals from the remnants of the old red board, and I've looked it through, and my first response, and it may have been the wrong response, but my first response was, I don't want to create a mirror image of what the city has. In other words, we have two economic development entities not sparring with each other, but not, it's probably too much, maybe it's redundant. I guess that's the word I'm searching for. Can you be redundant? And I'd like a reset here. I'd like to, and since this opportunity has presented itself, I like the idea of doing this analysis. Anyone else? Steve Carroll.
Yeah, it's a shame that we're not still in partnership on economic development, but wherever we go with this, if we're not able to replicate what Jason was doing on an ongoing pursuit of opportunities, this report won't help. We're good if we can commit to some way funding a position or hiring on an ongoing basis someone to chase grants and chase opportunities. This won't help.
This won't help, you're saying?
Unless we follow up and
right.
commit in our budget that we're going to.
Absolutely. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Melissa.
So I'd just like to ask Administrator if he foresees us having any money in our budget set aside for economic development for 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and that's just what I was going to respond to. So, again, as I mentioned previously, there is money remaining in the 2023 budget that was dedicated to economic development that is unspent. So we very easily could cover the $4,500 for this contract, depending on the outcome of the contract and what the Beckers present back to, I would say, this committee and to the full board. That will determine whether or not you're going to go next steps. Whether is it with Becker as a consultant, are you going to bring on an employee to do that? But the answer to your question, Supervisor Luck, is that I intend to include an amount of money in the 2024 budget for economic development purposes. That number yet needs to be determined, but that's why I really suggest that we get this study moving quickly so that we're going to have a better idea of what next steps are.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll.
So, would this timeline support our budget process?
And I can let Gary and Katrina speak to their availability, but Gary told me the other day that they would be available to start fairly soon on this. So I think that we would have time. And again, I would suggest that they report, at least start out, to the Finance and Personnel Committee. And as I said, we would budget some funds in the 2024 budget if we get a positive response. And then I also wanted to mention, the Red Board was brought up a couple times, and I think this also provides an opportunity for those that were interested in working on economic development in the past. They could still be part of this process as far as the interview process and working with this committee, so that everyone's interest in economic development are supported.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Can I just ask a question to either Gary or to Katrina about their availability? I just want to make sure that you still are available to do work in 2023 and even prior to the budget.
Yes, that's right, John, we are. And I'm not sure when you would need this information to be able to put it, to have it input into the budget, but I expect that we could get the meetings done in the August and September timeframe and have something by the end of September, early October.
Yeah, thank you. So it looks like the time is not impossible. So we have the proposal before us, and the sum is, barring extra expense for mileage, et cetera, but looks like a proposal in the amount of $4,500. And then additional if we want to do grant writing. So hearing that, do I have a motion to move forward? Mr. Williamson makes the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Turk seconds. All those in favor of awarding this contract and going ahead with this signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to thank Gary and Katrina for being on this call this evening, and we will be in contact with you soon for next steps.
Thanks, and thanks to the committee. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, financial. Discussion and possible action, department billing. Discussion, possible action, policy approval, finance, bid and contract purchasing. I'll just stop there because the next thing takes us into budget. Mr. Hokemer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm going to recommend here tonight is I'd really like to get some conversation going. I want to thank Supervisor Carroll for sending a lengthy list of questions and clarifications that he wanted, so that helped me to read through the policies again. But my recommendation is that we discuss this tonight, especially if you already have read the documents and you have questions. But I've heard from some departments and I heard from Supervisor Carroll that there's perhaps some inconsistencies, there's some duplication in these policies. The finance policy has been reviewed by department heads, and I wouldn't mind going back one more time for them to take a look at that. The other two policies, the bid and contract policy and purchasing policy, have not been reviewed by the department heads. So I think it makes sense that we go through those. And Tom is here this evening. Tom mentioned to me in the cover letter, we talk about that the county currently doesn't have a finance policy. I know that Tom mentioned today that Pine Valley does have a finance policy. So we'd also have to make sure that those are consistent, and they aren't, butting heads with the overall county policy. But it's good to have these types of policies, the purchasing policy, the bid and contract policy, and the general finance policy, for a variety of reasons, for efficiencies and just to make sure that we're doing everything proper and legal. So again, Mr. Chairman, what we're really looking for this evening is if there's any questions or clarifications on what we saw here in the documents that were included with your packet. We'd love to get feedback tonight, but I'm recommending that you do not take action on any of the three policies this evening.
Okay, has everyone read those policies, proposals, and do you have comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may, for some background information.
Yes,
So
Mr. Kalish.
the finance policy, we started that, it's probably been over a year ago. These policies actually came to our attention as we were discussing the possible centralization of services, if you will. So I think Tom's example of having a purchasing policy at Pine Valley is a very good one to use, because some departments may have one, the bigger ones at HHS, you folks may have like internal ones you use, if you will. But Trish, I think you were part of the overall discussion. The point of these was to have an overarching policy that everyone could use, and then obviously with the exceptions for the bigger departments like Pine Valley and HHS, that as much as we'd all like to play the same game, sometimes it's a little different for all of us depending on department. So when you're reviewing these policies, bear in mind that one, some of them didn't formally exist. A finance policy did not formally exist. So there were times when things were called into question as to how should we proceed with what we need to do, right? So that was kind of the catalyst for this. And then as we, again, were discussing the centralization of services, financial services, various things, it came to be that we need one policy that guides us all, again, with the different amendments based on departments and their different nuances. So just, that's why this came to be. And I echo what John said. These do need a little more work. We do need to review these. Some of these we started and then we're set down with transition and everything else, and then up again. And as we started to do the finance policy, referencing things like bids and purchasing policy and contracts, all that comes into play too. So some of these have been worked, but some of them have not. So just some background information so you know why they came to be where they are today.
We can't hear online.
You're not using your mic. That's on.
Okay, the point I was making is that Administrator Pesh, soon to be Administrator Pesh, who has not officially started yet, she will start on July 10th, will have some opinions and some observations on these items. And I think it's appropriate that we take pause tonight. Okay.
But just feedback.
We need feedback, yes. All right,
Steve?
discussion? Yes, Mr. Gotchel.
I noticed in the bid and contract policy, line number 11 says if sealed bids are used, the following requirements apply. I couldn't find any mention of when sealed bids should be used, unless that's an oversight on from my perspective. Said another way, is there discretion in when to use sealed bids and when not to?
That's a term.
Mark, the time I've been around sealed bids is at highway. like when we're doing truck bids or something along that line.
I thought it was,
Yeah, I thought the same, that it
Yeah.
was in here. I'm trying to look for it myself.
But it's a good question, it's a good observation, and this is the stuff we need to look at as we go through this.
I'm not seeing it right now, wait.
I remember one of my first meetings.
I thought I saw it, Supervisor Gotchell, but this is different. In the section where I saw it, this is regarding federal bills and under the seal process, but we will make a note and we'll take a look at that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Manning?
Yes, as long as we're on the bids, since I've been on the board, I've always thought the county is not doing it properly. I write bids at least on a monthly basis in the summer months. And anytime I deal with another governmental entity, I have to do a sealed bid. And if there's a date of the opening, all contractors are invited to come to the opening. And like I said, it has to be sealed with a date and a time to be open. I'll give you a good example. My nephew does brick restoration. He had a bid to do a job in Illinois. He was running late, put his bid inside of an envelope so he could say it's a sealed bid, and they rejected it because he didn't lick it. So there's places that's that strict that it absolutely is no doubt that nobody else has looked at it, nobody else has tampered with it. And I think we need to do something, at least to the line where our bids, like Mark was talking about the trucks and stuff. I know when we'd have the highway committee, you know, the bids always come in and they were sealed and we opened them at the same time and the other truck companies could always be there at the time. I would like to see something like that made policy.
Right. Anyone else? Any other observation? Okay, so the entire thing is under study, under discussion. Steve? Carol?
Just one more thing. I was just, again, in the notes I sent, John, I was curious where some of this wording came from, if there was some organization, but then I thought, I wonder if we could contact WCA, see if they have any resources, or even neighboring counties that might give us some more ideas on what wording works.
And I'm happy to go through, maybe we can do it after the meeting or some other day, we'll go through all the things that you sent. But as far as where this came to, I believe that Cheryl did a copy and paste from other county documents. So she is off this week, will be back on Monday. So then we can dig into that a little bit deeper. But I think it came from other county contract or other county agreements, but I don't think it was one specific. So it was bits and pieces. And that, I think, is some of the reason why it doesn't flow the way that it should flow. But there are other things, like, for example, one of your questions was it refers to a finance officer. And officially, Derek also holds the title of finance officer for the county because we don't have a finance director. But it's things like that. I'll be happy to go through those with you.
Okay. I think we're gonna move down now to discussion, possible action, budget objectives and guidance. Mr. Holcomar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think Derek and I will be tag teaming on this. Barb, I'm going to share my screen again, if I could.
Yep.
Is it up there?
Mhm.
Okay, I can't see behind my head. So I'm not going to go through everything here and read everything word for word, but I'm going to try and catch some of the key items here. So some of the objectives that we would like to have you approve this evening, a few documents. One is regarding the levy, that we're going to meet the operating levy as imposed by the state of Wisconsin. We really have no choice but to do that. For services provided, we would operate within the levy limit and protect those effective, or protect the effective delivery of essential services, maintain current discretionary services provided directly by the county or through partnerships, but with the intentions of prioritizing, evaluating, and reducing services in preparation of balancing a 2024 budget. We also have some funds that are still available, and they have been designated as to what they're for, but there is still the use of ARPA funds in 2024. The capital improvement program, at your most recent meeting, you approved that program. So that's what we're moving forward with and will be part of the budget. As far as the preservation, to strive and to build and maintain an appropriate minimum undesignated general fund balance, of 25% of the annual operating fund. That is a very good goal, and it makes a lot of sense to do that for a variety of reasons, including the bond rating that, you just saw that we recently went back up again. So in case somebody's wondering where we're at, and we don't have the 2022 audit yet, but at the end of 2021, we were at 7.9%. So we're not near the 25%, but we're moving in a positive direction. As far as wages and benefits, meet projected increases and adjustments in health insurance premium costs and fringe benefits, make adjustments in employee wages to progress towards the goal of obtaining market value as determined through the 2018 compensation study. Adjust our wage schedules in response to increased costs of living expenses and recent inflation trends. So one of the things that you'll probably hear me say, and more than once, is that the 2018 compensation plan is completely out of date. It hasn't been followed. It hasn't been implemented. There's been many reclassifications of job descriptions from when that compensation plan was approved to now. We have spent several thousands of dollars on reclassifications. And one of the things of concern to me is that those classifications can take place. Any department head can go ahead and request from Carlson Detman without the administrator or anybody else knowing. Many times we don't know until we receive an invoice that somebody requested a compensation reclassification. So that is concern to me. I think, and I know it's always a lot of money, but I think that the county should seriously consider doing another compensation plan. One of the things that, especially in these trying times, to hire employees and to retain employees is pay. And we're definitely on the low end of the pay scale. But again, there's many inequities, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we move down. As far as the major challenges, again, I don't want to read through everything here. Page 2. Page 2 is where I'm talking about a new study. Also on page 2, what we have built into this budget, and we don't know, it's as good as a guesstimate as we possibly can do, is a 13% increase for health insurance costs. That 13%, I know, Tom, you sent me an email earlier today, that 13% would include the surcharge. So that's, unless we hear different this evening from the committee, we are going to tell the departments to anticipate a 13% increase in health insurance premiums. Now, we probably won't know those numbers until probably 2 months from now, could even be longer. But usually they don't come out until very, very late August or early in September. Also on page 2, if you look at number 5 there, years 2025 through 27 remain unbalanced. A series of proposed resolutions have been presented in the past, and they may direct the various committees to work with staff to solve those remaining gaps going forward. Now, a couple things. First of all, the environment has changed since the county approved the budget in 2023. So one of the things that on the negative side, as far as finances, is the closure of the UW campus and how we're going to deal with additional expenses that the county will incur due to that. And we don't have all those answers yet today, but they will be coming. There's the increase in shared revenue, which we've been told is approximately $800,000. It just so happens that if we did everything that was planned last year in the budget process and followed through, in 2007 or 2027, we would have about an $800,000 deficit because the county used ARPA funds last year to balance the budget. So we have to be really careful when we talk about the increase in shared revenue, that we have this windfall of money that's coming. We don't want to dig a hole deeper for 2027 than what we already have. So we want to be very, very smart and very responsible in how we develop the budget. There's also significant increases in general transportation aids, so that will impact our budget. I just took a look today at the county sales tax collections, and they're up slightly for after 6 months. They're up slightly over $22,000 over the same time in 2023. So potentially, we're going to see a little increase on tax collections, county sales tax. Then on page 3, I made a note. Page 3. Mustn't have been up. Yeah, top of page 3. So our general fund balance that we had as of December of 2021, and again, we won't know the December 2022 balance until October when the audit is finalized and then presented to the county board. Then on page 8, I'm going to move ahead. I don't know if you're following me or following along. A couple of things I want to mention here. On page 8, when we talk about Pine Valley wages, and this is something that we definitely want you to weigh into this evening. So a year ago, the county approved a pay increase across the board, a 5% increase for the county, 5% increase. But for Pine Valley, they also approved a step increase for 2024. And Tom knows I'm going to say this. We talked about it earlier today, and I want to give him an opportunity. He's got some comments that he wants to make. But this is the number one issue that I've heard from county employees, and where they're expressing their frustration, where there's different pay scales. There's 2 different pay scales in the county, and it's not only difference in pay scales, it's how people are started under one plan and how they're started and they move through, they progress in the next plan. So what I have in this document does not include the step increase for Pine Valley. Again, I really do want you to weigh into that. So we ran the numbers, and these are very, very rough numbers. So don't quote us on them, but it's fairly close. A 2% or a step increase for Pine Valley employees over and above the 5% increase is slightly over $95,000. So that's what the 2% costs. If we were to say, okay, we're going to be fair and equitable to all employees, so don't take the 2% away from Pine Valley, but give it across the board to everyone else, that's $168,500. So if you add those 2 together, it's just under $265,000. That would be if we moved countywide across the board, a 5% increase plus 1 step increase. So we'll maybe, Tom, if you don't mind, can I just go through this and then you can respond a little later? So again, that's I believe very strongly in equity and being fair to all the employees. And I'm recommending that to you. If you decide to do something different, that's up to the committee and ultimately up to the board. Moving on to the next page. Does anybody have any questions to this point? Okay, moving on to the next page. Under Tri-County Airport, we're waiting. I placed a call into the Sauk County Finance Director today to try and get a number on that. I don't have that number yet. Also on page 9, and you have a PDF on your tablet. So where it says Pine Valley Community Village. So last year the Pine Valley paid $300,000 towards the debt service. So that money came directly out of their coffers to fund that debt service, a portion of it. It says here 205,000, and initially that's some numbers were transposed here. So this number should be $250,000, except having a conversation with Tom today also, that he's going to talk to the trustees, and he thinks that that contribution to the debt service for Pine Valley could be slightly over $400,000. And if I'm wrong on that, Tom, you can correct me in a little bit. Also on page 9, we have a 0% increase for the operational expenses for the UW campus, and that is a big unknown. We do not know where that's going to end up. And then the other thing we noticed on page 10, it has not been taken out in this document, I don't believe. Was that Derek
Under
on?
review phase.
No. Was it on this page or?
It's page number 11 on the PDF.
Page number 11, okay. Here, okay, under review phase, that second sentence, health insurance proposals will be considered through this process. That we deleted in the document that Derek has, the official version, because I didn't hear anything from anyone talking about looking at different alternatives other than the state plan, which you moved to last year. That may be something down the road that you want to take a look at, but for now, we have it that in 2024 that we would be with the state plan. So, Mr. Chair, I'd really like for Tom to have an opportunity to give his thoughts on Pine Valley.
Yes. Tom Rislow, the director of Pine Valley, will speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wrote my comments so I could be concise. I know these meetings can get long for you all. The 5-year financial forecast prepared last year for Pine Valley included a COLA wage increase and a one-step increase on the pay plan for 24. John's recommendation would remove that step increase, and I asked that it be kept in, at least for now. I would argue that Pine Valley is unique to the county and should be treated differently. It provides inpatient health care 24/7, 365 days a year. Wages affect our recruitment and retention, which affects staffing, which affects occupancy, which drives our revenue. And our revenue affects how much debt relief we can provide back to the county. More than 40 nursing homes have closed since 2016. The two main drivers has been lack of staff and low Medicaid reimbursement rates. State legislators in the last couple of years have recognized this and provided significant financial relief to nursing homes, with the understanding such relief would in large part be spent on things that would help with recruiting and retaining of staff. Shame on us if we don't use the extra funding for its intended purpose. I'll also mention that being able to recruit and retain staff keeps our use of expensive traveler staffing down. As it is, we still use some travelers, spending $55 an hour for CNAs and $70 an hour and up for nurses. This committee, as well as last year's ad hoc referendum committee, understood how our staffing drives occupancy, and which drives revenue, which drives our debt relief. And so when news got out that we had signed a contract with an international recruiting agency, this was seen as a positive. John's argument for all county departments to receive the same increase is about fairness, and such an argument has merit. It's also an argument I understand.
well, because at Pine Valley, we have upwards of 10 different departments, and we're always challenged with keeping things fair between and among them. So I get it. However, as I stated, we are unique for the reasons mentioned, and I'm not afraid to say we should be treated differently. I've asked for the step increase to be allowed to be left in at least for the first round of budgets due to July 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
So I would just say, and I understand, I see Tom's side of the argument also. But, you know, like I said before, it's the thing that I've heard over and over, the greatest frustration that we have here in the county. And I agree with Tom that, you know, the legislature in their wisdom provided additional money to the public sector nursing homes to try and help retain employees. But I've worked personally with the legislature for many, many years, and sometimes they don't see the unintended consequences of their action. And, you know, that's my major concern. But it's how we move forward is not a decision that I can make or Derek can make or even Candace can make. That is going to require committee and board action. So we really need you to weigh in on that. And, you know, there are other options. We wouldn't have to go 2% if you split the difference and gave everybody a 1% increase, but then you're not following the pay plan again. Then you'd cut that down to about 132,000, which would be not all that much more than if Pine Valley got, you know, the full 2%. But, you know, there's pluses and minuses, and we definitely need you to weigh in on it.
Okay, I'm going to open up for opinion and comment to the committee. Tim. Mr. Gotchel.
One clarification, the 13% health increase included the surcharge.
It does, but we just want to make sure that everyone understands that is a best guesstimate that we have as of today.
Sure.
Where it would be, that number could be higher, it could be lower.
Okay. And this is year 2 of surcharge, which year 3 would not have a surcharge. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'd implore my committee members to stay the course on that one, in case anyone was thinking otherwise. John, can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Does our pay plan mean anything anymore? The steps, the percentages used, the research that was put into it to create it 5 years ago.
I'll be perfectly honest with you, like I always am. Your pay plan that you had done in 2018 is so far outdated. It is, in my opinion, of no use to the county anymore.
And the reason for that is we haven't put the money in it. It's sat there.
I think we should all appreciate that candor, and when we make decisions following step increases or whatnot, I think that we should, I agree, this is priority number 1 for our county is getting our staff paid appropriately. But I wonder if we're getting lost in the vernacular, use step increase, 2% COLA, like, do we need to reference that document as a source of truth anymore, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm asking that rhetorically, I guess.
Okay, I'm going to go right around the room, Mr. Turk.
Maybe you just weren't close.
Department, it's not working. Just hold on.
I got it now. He was turned off.
Okay. Barb always turns me off. It's safer that way when she keeps my mic down. But no, for years we've heard these comments of what's fair, what's equitable, what's, you know, and the reality of trying to maintain a full and competent staff in the challenging workplace environment, particularly in the healthcare workplace right now. Pine Valley has struggled for years to recruit and retain staff, and particularly even just competing against nearby facilities is incredibly challenging. I guess I don't have as big a problem with them saying, yeah, we're different, because they are. And I myself personally don't see that as unfair. But like Tom says, yeah, I can see the other side too, and the concern for it. But I guess I feel that it's in our best interest to keep as much as we can that drive to recruit and retain at Pine Valley to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of its operations, so long as we're determined as a county that we're going to continue to operate a healthcare facility.
Okay, Mr. Manning? Okay, Mr. Carroll, we'll let you get by this time. Mr. Carroll?
Okay. It does strike me that they are two different job markets, and it doesn't sound fair, but the market speaks, and I think we have to acknowledge that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I do have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Manning.
Do we have to follow Carlton Detman? I mean, is that simply a policy that we have to follow? Is that something that's a guide? Because it does seem way out of whack.
Question is, do we have to? I guess we don't have to, but, in 2018, we adopted their salary plan with their recommended steps for, I don't know what they pay people over in Iowa County, so we depended on them to tell us that information. So I guess my opinion on that would be, we don't have to follow them, but they're the best guide we've got.
The biggest problem, from what I'm hearing anyway, is somebody who's been here 20, 30 years leaves, and we hire new, and they get more money than the person that just left.
Yeah, or
That I have.
or they don't leave and we hire new and they get paid more. Okay, I jumped over to Williamson now.
A couple comments. I agree with Tim. I think we throw it out the door and we just start using a percent increase. It's the only thing we have to go by, but I would like to eventually have a price on a new study. Hopefully maybe before budget time. I would assume somebody could give us a quote on that. I agree with Dave. I sit on the Pine Valley board. We spend almost that 98,000 in 1 month of contracted nurses. So if we can retain help and, like Tom said, reduce our contracted CNAs and RNs, eventually the 98,000 will actually pay for itself, in my opinion. But my thoughts.
Okay, I know Melissa, you're online, and Mark, I think you're online. So, one of you want to take it?
I'll go. It's Melissa.
All right.
I have a general comment just in the whole talking about how we need to pay our employees more. I mean, of course I couldn't agree more, but it always comes to that question of how are we going to pay for it? When we have discussions with the departments about, do you want to cut staff so that you have money available to give raises to everybody else? Nobody wants to do that. And when we ask, are you able to cut your budget? They're not able to. We went through that whole referendum process. We're trying to find even anywhere where we could cut the budget. So, I mean, I agree that we do need to pay our employees more, but I still don't see where and how, where we'll get the money and how we'll pay for it. And as far as Pine Valley being different, I mean, I think that the jail staff is also different. I think there's other areas where they're just, it's a required service that we're providing as far as the jail is concerned, and Pine Valley it is a different situation. So I guess I do understand the whole fair and equitable point of view, but I think the reality is that we have certain areas where we don't have a choice but to make different decisions. So.
Okay, and point of clarification, Melissa Luck is chair of the Public Safety Committee, so she's aware of the jail and what we pay them. Okay,
Yeah, and
Mark?
I mean, we're also struggling with turnover and to retention there all the time. And we have, if we can't man our jail, then we have to send our inmates to, you know, to other counties.
Right, right. Transport and a board, room and board. Mark Cooey, are you on?
Yep, I'm on, Marty. I guess I look at Pine Valley different too. I mean, their revenue source, and it's probably one of the very few revenue sources we have in the county. My opinion, we have to take care of that. It benefits everybody's wage probably in the end. So, I guess that's where I stand on that.
Okay. Do I have any other finance people online? Well, it's obliterated now. Any out there? Okay. I'll make a comment, may I? As a member, I'm chair of this committee, and I'm also on the Pine Valley board. And I do think there is a difference. And if we lose people at Pine Valley, we shut down a wing. If we shut down a wing, then we lose god awful amounts of money. I mean, not only are we not caring for people, but we're losing valuable revenue. So to make sure we keep that revenue, we have to, and we're not rewarding people, we're simply trying to bring them up to a wage where we can keep them. And I know that Tom has a plan in place to bring in some, I don't know what the name of that program is, Tom, it escapes me, but people from the Philippines, International Manpower Connection, and we're like 18 months out or something on that. So it isn't going to be overnight, but that's something that we've turned to. So I would be not in favor of taking the 2% out, but I'm only one vote on this committee, so. Mr. Holcomer.
Two things. I think, Melissa brought up the topic about where do we get the money to pay for employees. That's why I'm really pleased that you took the first step on the contract with the Beckers tonight, because I think we really need to take a look at how can we increase our tax base? Because if we can increase our tax base, it's more money every year. The second thing is, I think another thing that could be done is if you did a compensation plan and you did it countywide and the results came back that Pine Valley was not paid where they should be, that's what a compensation plan would show. It would show the same thing for the sheriff's department. It would show it for any other department. Then that issue of fairness and equity is gone because you did a compensation plan. And so, I think that's a thought, whichever way you decide to go on the 2%, that's your decision. That's not mine. But I really think, and we'll work on getting a quote to have a compensation plan done. But that's the only way that you can make sure that things are fair and equitable is if you redo the compensation plan and then stick to it.
And Mr. Holcomer, if I could have a recording of this committee meeting from 5 years ago, this discussion would be right along those lines. We have to have a compensation plan to bring equity and fairness to the overall employees in the county. And it's very difficult to maintain that. I understand. I know why we've gotten where we are. And one of the reasons is we just haven't had the money. We've done other things. We've spent it frivolously on other things like roads and police protection. Mr. Williamson, I'm being facetious.
You okay with switching gears for a minute? I've just got a couple questions for the administrator as far as the campus and budgeting. And I know we have no idea, but how I mean, so these people know, at least on this committee, you know, how we're going to try and attack that. If you think this is the right time, I just don't, I mean, a lot of this stuff may change because the majority of us know if we get that back, we're gonna have to spend a lot of money just to get through 2024 and the rest of 23, but
Right.
Okay. And that your comments,
and if it's not the appropriate time, I'm fine. with
well,
that.
they're appropriate in that the overall budget is affected. And what John is asking us to do is make budget making a little bit more tolerable by eliminating that 2%. And we know there are other things coming up.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify that 2%, to me, that has nothing to do with the campus or anything else in the budget other than a fairness and equity issue, which I think you can take care of by doing a compensation plan. So it's, yeah, for me, it's not tied to the campus at all. And as far as, you know, expanding upon what Supervisor Williamson said about the campus, we are in a negotiating mode right now, you know, with the state of Wisconsin. We did receive a proposal from them, and we've got some folks that are working on that. But there's just too many unknowns right now tonight to say what we think is going to happen with the campus and what our costs are going to be. But I think there's a high chance, a significant opportunity that, not opportunity, significant chance that it's going to have a very negative impact on the county budget for 2024.
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, since we approved the CIP last meeting, I've had a chance to look through that master plan that was done for the campus back in 2013. At that time, they were, and this was a detailed plan that was commissioned by the campus with people in the loop from the board and everything. At that time they were projecting capital projects over the next 10 years, meaning from 2013 to 2023, of $18 million. There was, during that same time, just maintenance, not capital, but just maintenance costs of, I believe it was $2 million. I don't know how much of that happened. My impression is not much. So that at some point that it's on our table.
Yep, thank you.
I agree.
Okay,
If there's no other questions on that part, I would like to go back up in the document a little bit because there's some things that we're really hoping to get approval on tonight. So can I share my screen again?
please.
Still on.
You are. I'm still on. Okay. So tonight, July 5th, top of the page, we're hoping that
What page, Mr. Volkman?
it would be page 6 of the document. So tonight we're looking that we get approval on the budget timeline, on the budget packet, the budget objective, and the budget guidance. So we get that tonight. We would distribute that to all the department heads tomorrow. On July 13th, the administrator would conduct a department head meeting to talk about all the things that was approved by the Finance and Personnel Committee. The 27th of July, we're proposing that the worksheets would be submitted to the county administrator by 4 p.m. that day. Scrolling down here, these are tentative meetings that we have set up with the department heads and the administrator to talk about budget.
I have a question on that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So August 4th at 8:30 in the morning is the public safety meeting. And like register and probate would be at the public safety meeting. And and obviously then I wouldn't be able to listen to these presentations, you know, it'd be there. So I'm just curious.
We
knew that August 4th.
We will confirm the schedule with everyone. This is just what we put out for now and as placeholders. And I know that Trish, we had a conversation today that the 8 o'clock really didn't work the best on. We will confirm with everyone to make sure that there's availability for those meetings.
So you're looking for a motion for the timing?
Yeah, and I have a few more things to mention there. So we also built in an extra day on August 7th for the department heads to meet with the administrator. August 17th, the administrator would provide budget updates at a department head meeting. On September 6th, it would be a regular meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee. We would make the presentation to the committee. September 11th and 12th, those 2 days, if the committee and the administrator needs a follow-up with any departments, we would do it those 2 days. The 15th of September, there'd be a resolution from the Finance and Personnel Committee. And then on the 18th of September, the budget draft summary would be drafted for a newspaper publication. October 2nd is the final day for Derek to submit the summary to the newspaper. And on October 24th would be the public hearing on the budget and county board adoption. I think, Derek, did I miss anything?
No, you did not. Just to note, October, we have 5 Tuesdays, so the last Tuesday in October would technically be the 31st, I believe. So because there's a few things that have to be done November 1, I believe we will be meeting on the last or the 4th Tuesday in October. County board rules usually say the last Tuesday in October, but there's 5 this year, so that would really be the only anomaly.
Right. We've discussed this and we decided that by gum, we're gonna go with the 4th Tuesday. Okay, is that it?
I believe that's it on this part.
Okay, so, right, this part, we're not voting on the 2% issue, we're voting on the timing. And I need a motion then to go ahead with the overall timing of the budget.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think if people are comfortable, we could have a motion to approve all those documents that we talked about right here, and where was it? We get to the right page. The timeline. So the budget timeline, the budget package, budget objective, and the guidance.
Right.
And then included in that, if you want to make an amendment for Pine Valley or any other amendment, to let us know what you'd like to have included in the budget, including, we can get some quotes on a compensation plan if that's the wish of the county, and we can attempt to build that into the budget.
Well, okay, I need a motion then to get the timeline before us. Do I have a second?
So, sorry.
Do I
Mr.
have a
Chair,
motion?
Before we do that, to John's point, this is important. We're giving the guidance after today's meeting, and we won't meet again until proposals, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so were you making that motion on the timeline?
I am not making the motion on the timeline.
Okay. Will
I'd like
somebody
to
make
talk
the
more.
motion on the timeline, please?
Can I clarify, Mr. Chair? You're
Yes.
asking for motion on the timeline. Administrator Hokumer was talking about motion on all 4 combined. Are we separating them? Is that your
I
intent?
think we're making a motion on the timeline, and then it is my intent, wish that then we bring in as an amendment the 2% for Pine Valley and the maybe seeking information regarding a new compensation study as amendments.
Yes, I'm not understanding, because the timeline is part 1, and what you're talking about is parts 2, 3, and 4 as he listed here. But the motion you're asking for is only for part 1, sir? I'm
Yeah, well,
confused.
perhaps I stated it poorly, so no. I'm looking at the preliminary budget phase 1 on page 4.
So everything under 5 July that's what you're looking for?
Yes,
Okay, I would make that motion, sir.
all right. Mr. Turk has made the motion, and I call it the timeline. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Carroll seconds. Okay, now it's before us. Now, there are a couple other things that Administrator Hokumer would like to see settled here, and one would be the going ahead with the budget process, the step of 2% for Pine Valley. That's an outlier. And second thing would be examining perhaps putting out a request for probably not an official request, but some feelers to redo the compensation plan. Mr. Carroll,
I would make a motion to amend so that the 2% is put back into Pine Valley wages.
okay. You're making an amendment to the motion then?
Correct.
Do I have a second to that? Mr. Williamson, okay. We'll handle it separately. All right, we'll vote on that amendment then. And the timeline motion is the big one. Now we have an amendment to, and your motion is to keep the 2% step in.
Well, right now, it's not in the guidance. I'm saying to return it to
You
it.
want it added back, okay. Okay, and we had a second. All right. Are we ready to vote on that? Do we need a roll call? Call, Mr. Kalish, call the roll on this amendment vote, please.
Okay, so just to clarify, the amendment is whether you're in favor or not of the 2% being included in the budget guidance document for Pine Valley, correct? Okay.
To restore it to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Brewer,
Yes.
Hui,
Yes.
Manning, Gatchel,
No.
Turk,
Aye.
Williamson,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
and Carroll.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Now, have we had a motion on the amendment? Yes, Mr. Williamson?
So now we need to make a motion to get, they're not gonna be official quotes, but get an idea of what a new, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Okay, and was there one other thing Mr. Hokumer wanted on the amendment?
No.
So my motion,
But I would say if I could, I think it's important that we get actual quotes.
they don't cost anything,
We should get an actual quote.
right?
Okay.
Yes, that, I would say it, my amendment would be to include in the budget process would be official quotes on reviewing our compensation plan, and maybe they don't even call them steps anymore, I hope. I've heard enough of steps. So,
Okay, Williamson has made a motion to amend. Do we have a second? Mr. Manning? Okay. We're gonna get an idea of what it's gonna cost us to redo everything, reset it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just keep in mind this last process, we wrapped up in 2018. We started in 2016. I mean, it was
About 2 years.
a 2-year process.
Took a while.
So we're voting on this as a budget item to help our 2026 selves. Just wanted everybody to be clear on that. And there's going to be a lot of turnover and a lot of one-off requests between now and then.
Just a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Does it have to take 2 years? I mean, I find that hard to believe it needs to take 2 years to get that done.
All we can do is ask them. I can't give you an answer on that this evening.
I definitely would ask them what the expectation is, you know what I mean, it should be in that quote of determining how long this is gonna take, because nobody else in the world would wait 2 years for a wage study.
Administrator Candace Pesh has a comment pertinent to that discussion.
So I have done a complete compensation and classification study from the ground up on 325 employees. That's rewriting all job descriptions, going through the appeals process, all of it. And it took us less than a year. So yes, it can be done. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of cooperation. It takes a lot of communication, but it absolutely can be done in less than a 2-year time period.
Okay, thank you. All right, you've heard it. So I guess all those in favor of that amendment then signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we have the
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
just,
sir, Mr.
just
Hogan.
one clarification. I want to make sure that the committee is comfortable. And we were talking about a 2%, the 5 plus the 2 for Pine Valley. I think what would be appropriate is to say, and move one step, because it may not be exactly 2%. So I'm wondering if
So who made the amendment for the 2%? Mr. Carroll, who seconded it?
Second by Williamson.
Melissa seconded. Would the two of you be amenable to accepting that wording, 2% or the move to the step?
I'm fine with that clarification.
All right. Carol says yes. Luck?
Williamson.
Oh, Williamson, did you second?
Yes.
Oh, Williamson, do you concur then?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so now we've got the two amendments approved and corrected. Now we have the overall vote. I call it the timeline, incorporating those two amendments. Okay, ready?
No,
Gotcha.
I'm just trying to
Okay.
keep you here as long as possible.
Yeah.
Since I was the one that voted no on the amendment, I want to be clear. I want an opportunity for the entire department or the entire county to come forth with a plan to step increase their employees. And should I be offering that as an amendment here, or?
I think you could if you wanted to.
Well, we get to about this time every year and we adopt something and then our timeline precludes us from changing anything. So I just want, sure, I will offer an amendment that the budget guidance includes a step increase for the entire county in addition to the 5% COLA.
Do you have a percentage in mind?
We didn't use 2% because, right, we're using step language, one step.
Step
Yeah.
increase. Yes, one
Step increase.
Yeah.
So your amendment would be a step increase for all county employees.
I think if I could, Mr. Chair, the one thing that we have not approved is the actual budget guidance. So I think if we had a motion on the budget guidance that would perhaps include, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Tim, but would include that language that, and maybe I'm just thinking out loud, maybe you add as budget allows or something like that to it.
Perfect. So I'm hearing this is not the place to include that amendment.
Well,
we have another opportunity.
If you made a motion to approve the budget guidance and then added that language about, you would also like to see, if budget allows, a step increase for employees countywide.
Okay. I'd like to vote on this.
Okay, Mr. Chair, can I just make a clarification?
Yes.
So the point of this document is, remember, tomorrow we will be blasting this off to all department heads to say, start your budget process. The administrator's office and my office will work together in putting together the salary and fringe calculations, right? To give those to the departments. We provide those other than HHS Pine Valley. You guys do your own. But tomorrow we need a document that says this is how you should begin your budgeting process. So what I'm hearing today, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we've taken a roll call vote 7-1 to restore the step increase to Pine Valley. So Pine Valley can begin budgeting tomorrow with a 5% increase COLA plus your step increase, 2% equivalent to 1, but we're going to say 1 step increase. So that's the one change to this document. The second change would be your desire to then incorporate exploring a new compensation plan, which Supervisor Gotchel indicated wouldn't be relevant to 2024, but we can certainly put it in the guidance and we can start working on that process. And then the other part of this puzzle in terms of salary and wages, which is really the big thing here, would be Mr. Gotchel's first, which still needs a second for further discussion, to then modify the financial planning document that you folks approved last year that said Pine Valley did get the 5% COLA and the 1-step increase. All general employees, highway employees as well, general, right, were already budgeted for that 5% increase in that adopted financial planning worksheet. Remember the big, long, scary thing? So Tim's amendment would then be to include that plus a 1-step increase to all general employees. So I think those are the three things that we really need to have formalized before I send this out, because I know it'll happen if we don't have that verified or confirmed. There's no other chance to meet with you folks. You know, the budget timeline starts and it doesn't stop until we're done, right? And these guys need to know, including myself, how we're supposed to calculate salary and fringe for our folks. So I think that's really the heart of this, and obviously including that document would be adopting that budget timeline that has appointments for departments. We'll work that out. As Administrator Hockemer noted, they were just placeholders. We didn't have the time to reach out to each one of you and say, let's schedule a date. We'll do that. We'll get there. But that's kind of what we need to start tomorrow, because if you notice the timeline, it is moved up a little bit, but I wanted to make sure we had enough time in there with two new folks here present for us to pick up some of these pieces from just not all of us doing this exact process. So that's, I think, what needs to happen today, if that's correct.
So am I ready to call for a vote here?
No, we need a second.
Kalish?
I'll second.
Okay, you're seconding, you're seconding.
Tim's,
Gotchel's
yep, Tim's
amendment.
proposal or amendment.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the Gotchel amendment. I'm not sure what we're amending now, but
I have a question.
yes, Ms. Luck.
So
Go ahead.
Mr. Gotchel wanted us to add language that all the departments should do the one-step increase. I guess my only concern is, I mean, it's easy for them to all do that, but then, I mean, I'd like some language in that to make it clear that they really need to come up with ideas as to how we could potentially pay for it, that step increase for all their employees.
Thank you.
With that, I mean, that's included with the 0% increase for levy, right? Or
Yeah, and there would also be the budget summary document in which you would say, here's what my budget looks like, and here are the changes, and here's how we make that happen to a certain degree, if possible, right? May or may not be, but that would, I believe, be explained in meetings with the administrators.
Does that answer your question, Melissa?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna call for a vote on the Gotchel amendment then. If anyone needs it restated, we'll call on Clerk Kalish, but otherwise, yes.
sorry, I still not clear. Is this to be their default? This is the budget guidance, or is this more of a, well, what would it take to get a step for everyone? What
I
would
think
that number be?
The budget process asks that question.
Well,
I mean,
that's my question.
well, my answer to that is, we'll have to see when we get the budget before us if all of our concerns are met.
Well, I was just wondering if that's the way Tim saw it.
They're asking for guidance now.
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding with including the language as budget allows, we're giving departments latitude to include a step increase for their employees for their budget proposal.
But that's how I would do it. Okay, so.
Mr. Kalish, is that the way you have it written?
I'm making, so there's a first by Gotchel to amend the budget guidance to include a one-step increase for all departments other than Pine Valley, plus the 5% is budgeted. That is, let's see, so budget as budget allows with no change in impact to levy. Is that where we're at? Okay.
Okay, all right. All those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, now, we still haven't voted on the main motion. So.
I think, yes, if you can approve the budget guidance with the amendment set forth, then I think we're
The timeline, the timing, we gotta send this stuff out tomorrow, so that's what we're looking for. All right, so I'm gonna call for a vote on the main motion with the amendments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Wait, no,
Aye.
I have a first from Gotchel. I don't have a second.
Seconded.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry.
We started way back.
I gotcha.
Hour ago, we had that an hour ago. Okay, Did we vote? Aye. All those in favor, aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we finally did it. Okay. We're down to item, paragraph, whatever we call it, agenda area, personnel, and number 10, discussion and possible action, approve the office system technician job description. And I'll call on
Mr. Chair,
Holcomer.
if I could, there was a request at the last meeting to have the discussion regarding interdepartmental billings, and that is on the agenda. So it's up to you if you want to take that up tonight or you want us to put it on the next agenda. But that was a request at the last meeting.
That was my request, and I'm okay with delaying it to another meeting if you want to.
All right, with your consent, Melissa, we'll carry it over to another meeting, next meeting. Thank you. Okay, takes us back to number 10, office system technician job description.
So as all of you know, that there's been a vacancy since September 2022, and then another individual that left the department in February of 2023. So what is done here, has been done most recently, is to revise the job description to have the POUTS certification taken out of this job description to hopefully make the position easier to fill. So currently, Mike Bindle is taking care of the POUTS inspections. And so we're requesting that you would approve this revision to the job description.
Okay. Gotcha moves.
Second.
Carol seconds. Kathy Cooper has a comment.
This would also, like, starting in January, would also, my staff, my secretarial staff is retiring in November. And so then it would become like half-time through, we're in the same office basically, but half-time would be paid through land conservation and half would be paid through zoning, and it would be a dual position, answering phones for both, doing some of the basic data entry, keeping track of things in the office.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Melissa Luck.
So at our Land and Zoning Committee meeting, we did talk about when could this position be advertised and filled. Mr. Hochmer, did you have plans on when this position would be advertised and filled?
Well, we really can't fill the position until the vacancy. I'm looking at Kathy and wondering if that's correct. We really can't fill it until there's a vacancy in your department.
So that would be in November.
Mike and I were talking, and he's budgeted for the position that was formerly held by Jackie Nix. So the money, he's understanding the money's there for this year. It would just be next year, then it would go to be a shared position.
Kathy is correct. I did check with Derek, and the money is there, so we could fill the position. If we find a qualified candidate, we could fill it right away.
Because my feeling was it would make sense for this person to start right away with the zoning, but then also, you know, start working with Tammy to learn all of the million things she's done for the last 20 some years, so that there's, you know, the chance for that person to learn before she's retired.
Okay. So we can proceed with reasonable dispatch.
We have to vote on this, yeah.
No.
But I do have a question for Kathy. In the long term, we'll be less one employee, correct? Between the two departments, is that the goal? Okay. Just so everybody else knows so they're adjusting their long-term budget.
Right. Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The motion carries. Number 11, discussion and possible action, approve job descriptions for the fair, recycling, parks department. Mr. Holcomb.
Yes, and this has to do, it's been in the works for quite some time, and it has to do with the restructuring and adding parks responsibilities under Carla's position right now. And Carla's here, and she can speak to this. This came before the committee, and the committee approved it. I think it was unanimous, wasn't it, Carla?
Yes, it was.
To move forward. So I'll let Carla give an update.
So we're looking to have these positions approved by finance and personnel, moving them on to county board so that we can put them in the budget process that's going to be starting as we move forward with merging the departments together. So right now, Parks is handled by Kathy Cooper, and a portion of that, I believe, is done by Tammy Bender as well. So that would move under myself, and then we would have a part-time person in the office, which right now we have an LTE position. So we would just increase those hours a little bit to be able to fulfill the duties and obligations that would be included with this merger.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Manning? You make a motion, okay, to approve this recommendation.
I'll second.
Mr. Carroll, you second? All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries. Number 12, discussion and possible action, professional services agreement with John Hokemer for consulting services. And I think probably I should handle that one.
Mr. Chair, I'll step out. If there's any questions, I can come back in, but I would prefer to, if the committee wants me to step out, I'm more than willing to step out.
What are your wishes, committee? I don't have any problem with them hearing all my criticism. No problem.
We'll limit you to 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll speak. I'll hand the gavel off to somebody. I think that having John here has been a godsend. It was perfect timing. I've known John for many years. He's worked with the counties association. He's the guy that was always up front telling us how to run a meeting and run a county. So, and lo and behold, we got him here as our interim administrator. And we've been getting, I think, double duty out of him because not only for his administration, but his consulting, his ideas, his knowledge, his contacts. And I think it's just been a very, very excellent process for the county, and he has graciously, I should say Mrs. Hokemer has graciously agreed that he can continue on with us for, what did we say, 3 months?
Through the passage of the budget, which would be October 24th.
Yeah, we're trying to get through the budget process. And the document is before you. So, question, comment, Mr. Turk.
This is one of the financial provisions of the contract.
Yeah.
Here's the compensation. It's up on the screen. So just while you're looking, I would just say that number one, I mentioned this to Chairperson Brewer and also to Candace, that I'm willing to stay on with the understanding that everyone knows that Candace is the county administrator beginning next Monday, and that I'm here, whatever I can do to support her in that role, not to no longer serve as the administrator. And then secondly is, and you know, I ran this past PAA, and this is what I did in Dodge County last year. So once the recruitment was done and they had me on for another 3 months, the county is contracting with me directly so that there's some cost savings to the county as well.
Mr. Chair, I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes, Ms. Luck.
I hate to be keep repeating myself, but how are we going to pay for so we're talking $33,000 essentially?
Mhm.
Do we have any thoughts on where we would get that? Because once Kansas starts, we're, because to do this last 3 months, we've used some of the money that we haven't been spending since Clint left on his salary, but
Yes, that's right.
once she starts, we won't have that. So I'm just curious as to where, if anyone knows where we would get the funds to pay for this.
John, how are we gonna pay you?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. Hopefully we can find some efficiencies in the budget, even though we're looking at a compensation plan and pay increases and so forth. I have been working extremely hard with the city of Richland Center to get that back debt for the Simon Center.
Deficiency payment from.
Yeah, the deficiency payment, which is approximately $45,000. I think there's some other things coming down the pike that I think having me here will save you more money than what's going to cost you, I believe.
Mr. Chair, and at the
Yes.
outset of today's meeting, we learned that our investments are doing very well, higher than
Yes.
anticipated in our
Right.
budget. So if we were looking to dedicate a small portion of that to a worthwhile cause, this would seem to be appropriate.
Right. Okay, good. Good thoughts. Okay, I think we ought to approve this and I'll look for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Cooley,
Cooley.
and seconded by Turk. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, John, and there's a couple days lapse here. So either he's gonna work for nothing or we'll change the dates a little bit, but he's not gonna work for nothing. I'm being facetious once again. Okay. Where does that get us? It get us down to future agenda items, I believe. Mr. Manning.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a question that's not been answered, so maybe we can get it for future agenda. Years ago, we voted to pay Simon so much money a month for our employees to go there and have free exercising. I would like to know what's that costing us and how big a percentage of our employees are actually using that.
And I don't know the answer to that, Gary, but maybe Derek does.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I don't believe it's heavily utilized. Tammy Hendrickson would be the one to be able to tell you the number of employees that, you utilize any of those benefits. So I don't have an answer, but I don't think it's very heavily utilized.
And it's not so much per employee, we give them so much a month, correct?
No.
We paid so
No.
much.
Was
You
it
pay
like a
what?
sheriff's department contract or something?
Yeah.
Benefit for those. new
Right, and
employees?
like new employees get a free pass upon like the first week of hire, but I'm not aware of.
Point of order, Chair. I don't think we can be discussing this.
No, we shouldn't be. So do you want that on the agenda in the future, Gary? All right, we'll put it on the agenda. Thanks, Ms. Luck.
So policies will bring.
Yeah, we'll bring back the 3 financial policies that we skipped over, didn't skip over, we weren't prepared to discuss them. We'll bring those back.
And
The interdepartmental billing that we'll bring back.
Possible quotes.
Possible quotes. Yep, and, okay. I think that does it. Look for a motion, Mr. Manning.
One other thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes, okay.
John, do you think we would have any reason to put the UW campus on next month yet? For budget item, or I mean for agenda item?
I would just say that staff will work with the county board chair, and if we deem that it's the appropriate time to put it on, then we will. So whenever it's appropriate, it'll be on.
Okay.
Did we ever do number 7?
we skipped over it and we're putting it on next meeting, Gary. Okay, but I'm looking to you for additional. Thank you, sir. Do we have a second? All those, Mr. Carroll seconds, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Kathy Lee. Wanted to know when Tammy Bender's last day would be. Does anyone know that? Colin?